Like most things in our fitness culture, pushing yourself to failure in a set is just a tool. It's not good, it's not bad, it's useful or detrimental depending on how you know how to program it into your workouts. And to effectively do that, there are two very key lessons about going to failure that almost never get talked about that I'm going to be addressing in this video. So the first thing to address is failure of what? We have this collective understanding that pushing to failure means you're doing an exercise until you just can't quite do it anymore. But always remember that every exercise is kind of an amalgamation of many variables. You've got stability, you've got endurance, you've got strength, you've got coordination. You even have subjective things like emotional motivation and mental focus, which oftentimes is more of a limiting factor than anything else. So the first lesson is recognizing that when you're going to failure, what is failing? Is it a mental thing? Is it an emotional thing? Is it technical? Is it stability, coordination? And being able to address and change your workouts so that what is failing is the thing you're actually trying to test. This is why when it comes to your programming and using exercises, some of the best ways to build up the muscle and develop the strength are things that don't have that much of a limitation in the other aspects. Things that are very simple exercises. There are things that are going to be easy to push yourself without worrying about stability and so on. But also things that are relatively comfortable as well. Because if your mind and your emotional state is going to DEFCON 5 when things get hard, you're probably going to bug out because things are feeling too uncomfortable mentally and emotionally, as opposed to really pushing yourself harder. That's one of the biggest reasons why I started to build more muscle when I got into calisthenics training. It was easier for me. It was more comfortable. I could put a lot more effort and push myself a heck of a lot harder during a set of pull-ups than during a set of bent over rows, just because it was more comfortable, it was easier on my body, and I could subsequently make it a heck of a lot harder on my muscles. So then we're talking, of course, about, okay, muscular failure. We're going until the muscles can't do anything anymore. But again, that is relative to what we're doing. Because when we're doing a set and our muscles are starting to kind of fail on us, that doesn't mean the muscle is completely drained of what it's potentially able to do for the exercise. We're not reaching muscular failure. We're reaching the failure of the muscle to produce that amount of tension. This is why drop sets can work. You can do things to failure and then immediately reduce the resistance and keep going, because your muscles can always do more work, but just not that much tension. And lastly, the role of failure in our programming is something to understand, because recognize that, yes, if you are pushing yourself into that red zone, you're going to have a lot more fatigue in the muscle. Theoretically, a lot of the research these days is suggesting that fatigue is heavily correlated with stimulus for hypertrophy, so building up the fatigue or building more fatigue could possibly create a stronger stimulus for building more muscle. Of course, building muscle depends on many factors. It's always a lot more than just whether or not you're pushing to failure. In fact, it depends on a hell of a lot more than just what you do in your workout. But when it comes to trying to develop that stimulus, getting a little bit more fatigue can kind of hedge your bets into the possibility of building muscle from the workout standpoint. And also don't think, okay, more fatigue always builds more muscle. There seems to be a little bit of a limitation there. It's like pulling the trigger on a gun. You need a certain amount of work to make it happen, but once you've created that stimulus and you've pulled that proverbial trigger, squeezing it even harder doesn't do anything. Check out videos here to apply these principles into some simple, quick little micro workouts, and thank you very much for watching. Be fit and live free.